Okay, okay. Welcome to everyone to the January 23rd, 2025 Facilities and Purchases meeting. This meeting is being recorded for those of you who are attending. If we are still trying to work out how we would like this meeting to work the best way. And for that, we'd like to suggest that everybody, if you have a comment on an agenda item or a question, if you can please raise your hand and ask that question, and then we can have it answered. Reminder that in a matter of letting the meeting move along, if you could adhere, well, we're not limiting it to, but if you could adhere to the 3-minute rule for questions as are in the policies. So without further delay, let's move on to the list of bills. Do we have any questions from the board?
I don't have any questions.
Shana, Kimberly?
No, I've been looking through, it looks pretty clear to me.
Yeah. No, Mel, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, I don't either. Are there any community members who have a question? Please raise your hand.
And from the community, if we could just keep it related to the topic that we're talking about, those questions for the time being.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Please. Thank you.
I do not see any questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
hi, Adrian.
Hi, sorry guys, I couldn't find the oh, I went into the wrong section. I'm sorry. I have a question about the Visa bills and the other credit card bills. You don't say who is actually you charged it to. You don't say the company name. You say what it's for. And I think that it opens you up to not saying that anybody's doing this, but it opens it up to fraud. There was that woman in the in one community that used the charge cards to do a lot of stuff, and that was illegal. And I think it would be in the protecting you guys more if you said not just Visa commercial services, but you said who the actual vendor was that you charged with. And then you could keep a better track of who you're spending money with.
Vic, that's tracked, right? It's just not in this particular spreadsheet.
It's tracked, Mrs. Seltzer. So we know exactly who the vendors are. There's certain controls in the procurement card that different vendors would not be access to. There's only approved vendors that we have. So we have that information. Just this report just shows the Visa as the vendor. So we have all that information. And it's tracked.
Is there, once the person submits the charge, is there an oversight by the supervisor that reviews it prior to it?
There is, correct. It's reviewed by administration. All the documentation is there. It's reviewed. And if they did try to get a vendor who's not an authorized vendor, it would decline it and we will get a report. And there's very limited access that we actually allow people to use it. So it's only administrators. There's no professional staff or support staff that uses it.
But shouldn't we be able to know who you're spending money with? It is our tax dollars after all.
This is the report. So, I mean, this is what the report, how it's generated. So
maybe that needs to change.
We can, Adrian, we can look into that. Is there something specifically in the Visa commercial services that is of concern or that you have a question?
Yeah, that I don't know who the vendors are that you're actually charging stuff with.
Okay.
So you just need another line on the spreadsheet there that says the vendor, not just what account it's going to and what it supposedly is.
Well, we can look at, this is something that we can't fix right now, but we can.
I understand that, but I brought this up before and
okay. Is there a list of Vic, is there a list of our approved vendors anywhere on our website or anything like that? Or Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, no.
No, there's not.
Is that something we could release, or is that something not?
I don't think so.
No, okay.
So how about this? Is it something that maybe we can look into for the future where instead of just saying Visa commercial services, we can maybe identify who specifically
Yeah, you identify. Yeah,
the
you
vendor-
identify all the others.
well, we don't for Amazon, we don't, but obviously because it's Amazon, but maybe let's do that. Maybe we can look at the administration can look at or Vic, you can take a look at and see if there's maybe a way that instead of when we're putting together the report for the vendor name, instead of just listing as Visa commercial services, it can break down into who specifically the vendor
Also
is.
for the Amazon, for the
Well,
both credit cards.
I'll see about that. I'll get back to you, Jason. What can be
Okay,
done.
great.
All right.
Because I don't know, this is a database. This is probably
Yeah, it's
from a report from a
Excel
database.
spreadsheet. You can add another column.
Yeah, but this is a spreadsheet that was probably downloaded as a report from
Yeah.
a database, which
So we have to-
we'd have to figure out how you can run that report.
Yes. Yeah.
So just for purposes, because I know that there's a lot of people and there's going to be a lot of comments and a lot of different topics. Adrian noted, we're going to offline, we'll look into this for the next meeting and we'll see how we can make it so that it provides hopefully more information. And if not, then we will provide that, to the community for the next meeting.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure.
Oh, and Adrian, reminder, where you need to state where you live and
Oh, Winwood.
Winwood. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So are we good to move this forward?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. So let's move on to the next item, which is the purchasing report.
Good morning, Ms. Schaffmeister. The way we will address this, Mr. Pitts will take item number 1, and Mr. Orlando will speak to item number 2. So I will give the stage to them.
Okay, thank you.
First item is a scheduled sprinkler repair. It is recommended the pricing from Kistler O'Brien Fire Protection to replace existing valve in the dry pipe system at Kinwood Elementary School under PA E-Marketplace DGS contract 4400023886 be approved in the amount of $9,899.98.
Thank you. Do you, since we're going to change people, let's ask questions now. Do any board members have any questions?
Is this because of a failure or is it just sort of timed obsolescence?
Indirectly because of a failure, not because of a failure of this valve, but we had a failure somewhere else in the system. And when our vendor came in, basically gave us the recommendation that that valve is getting a little bit wonky.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Thanks. Any questions from the community? Please raise your hand if you would like. Okay. Since we're not seeing anything, are we good to move this? We'll move on to the next one. The replacement vehicle lift.
Actually, parts for the, I hope, can you hear me? These are parts for the vehicle lift. It's not the active replacement of the lift. So these parts are about 20 years old. And what they are is basically we have different size buses and you have to use the adapters to secure it on the lift. And after 20 years, these parts are starting to deteriorate. So we need to get new parts. The manufacturer, they bought this 20 years ago from Germany. So we have to order them from Germany. So we're asking the board to approve this purchase. It will take a few months for us to get them from Germany. So we need to order them now, and it's $17,468.17.
Questions from the board?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Nope. No. I had one. Can you clarify, or Shana, did you have a question?
I did not. Thank you.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. These are being adapted. This is the lift itself parts or for the
So
bathroom?
it's the lift, and then you have these adapters you put on the lift to adjust a 72 passenger adjust versus a 32 passenger, and it secures it on the lift. Or parts
Okay.
that come off all the time from the lift, and then we put different parts on it depending upon the size of the vehicle.
Okay, that makes sense.
The lift itself is fine. Knock on wood.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, are there any questions from the community regarding this item?
I do not see any hands.
Okay, great. Thanks. So are we good to move the purchasing report forward?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Kimberly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
My
Okay.
pleasure.
Yeah, district contracts and the next item on the list. First of all, Shana, these already went through the curriculum committee meeting. Am I correct?
Yes, they did. There was an in-depth discussion. Sorry, it's hard to look at the tiny items through the Zoom. Let me just pull it up on my computer. But yes, we discussed these in depth, including what they were used for and what the costing was on each of them in CCOB.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. And they were approved, correct?
They were, yes.
Thanks. Okay, and so let's see I'm not sure who's speaking for these, but please go ahead.
Probably Scott.
I'm a chef master. It's Scott Weinstein.
Hi, Scott.
As Ms. Kalish said, they were approved at the CCOB meeting. There are two contracts up. One is 12,000 and change, and the other is 11,000 and change. The first one is called Teacher Toolbox. It's an extension of iReady, a software that our teachers use. It's a K-8 software that helps our teachers differentiate both in intervention, remediation, and enrichment. And that's a teacher tool that's used widely in our elementary and middle schools. The second contract is a 3-year contract from Habits of Mind. Habits of Mind is a social emotional learning tool that has 16 different habits of mind. So as students are learning academic curriculum, it's also things like metacognition, healthy risk-taking, things like that supplement a curriculum as we raise young people. It's a bank of videos that supports teaches these explicit habits through the elementary level. And they're the two products.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No, thank you.
No, I attended the curriculum meeting as well, so familiar with them both. No questions. Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions either.
Thank you.
Seltzer does have a question.
Seltzer has a question.
Yes.
Adrian Seltzer Winwood. What are the goals of each of these products?
The goals of iReady are to, when students aren't learning the curriculum in real time, it helps give teachers assistance in being able to help them and teaching in a different way. And when students already know it, it helps enrich them. So one of the hardest things to do in teaching is differentiation, recognizing students learn at different times. So the goal is to help struggling learners and advanced learners, which is a difficult task, and assist teachers in doing that. The Habits of Mind is something I just spoke to, is help develop children beyond their academic experience, but things that are valued in more of a social, emotional, non-cognitive skills way. Like I said, persistence, metacognition, things like that.
And how do you measure that?
Well, teachers have all kinds of assessment tools in the classroom. So when if students didn't learn, for example, they use Teacher Toolbox, and hopefully the students learn, and they track that all throughout the year. And similar with enrichment, our kids being able to be enriched in that experience. So teachers do that in real time. There's all kinds of accountability for that in the classroom, with the curriculum, in PLCs, with our achievement teams in schools to measure student learning.
Will this help kind of work on the achievement gap?
Sure, it's for anybody who doesn't learn. It supports students in learning. That's mainly the teacher toolbox one. Yep.
Okay, because the gap got bigger this year, so it didn't appear to be helping.
That's not fully true. There's a lot of data points. Some data points we dropped. Many data points we went in. Our middle school in math had 100% growth in one of our schools, 90%
Yeah, I was at that
in other
meeting.
schools. So it's just to be clear, with all due respect, Ms. Seltzer, that's generalized and there's a whole lot of data points.
Yeah, but it appears that will this help the students that whose families can't afford the outside help? A majority of the
We believe it will help all students, which is why we brought it forward.
Okay.
okay.
Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
And thank you for your explanation. Are we good to move this forward?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Okay, next one is Mr. Vilson's transportation drivers aids and the list, current list.
Hi,
Hi.
Aldous Wilton, transportation supervisor. Per Pennsylvania school code, we are obligated to bring it to board for approval, our list of contractor drivers and contracted aides that we use. All these people have been cleared by us. Their background checks are done. We have copies of them on file. We have their credentials, driver's licenses, physicals if needed. So unfortunately, list can only show the names, I assume for privacy purposes.
Thanks, Aldous. And I just wanted to clarify, and I know we've talked about this before, but I always like to say it in public. All of these drivers are background checked to the same degree that any other staff member working for our district, a teacher in a classroom, anybody like that. It's the same level of background checking.
Yes, it's the same level of background checking. And I also want to mention that not all of them really working for servicing our district, but many contractors clear their all drivers visas just in case driver calls out sick or they need to put a different driver on a run, that we can provide our services without interruption and have a clear driver on the vehicle. So like Atlas, for example, they clear every driver and aide that's working for them.
Great. And do all these drivers have CDL with the S certification, or is that only drivers? Is that only companies that will be driving buses? Like if we have somebody who's driving vans, usually then do they still need that CDLS?
No, the vans, 9 passengers plus driver, sedans do not require CDL. The contractors such as Mets, Kraft, Philly Trans that provide yellow buses for sports trips, they have the CDL, they have to have a school bus physical annual, all the requirements that school bus have.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions from the board?
No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay. I had a question. What is the aids that they are providing? What is their roles they take on when on our buses?
Sure. They transport, for example, Atlas and Balgo, they transport our special needs students.
Okay.
Large majority of these students in their IEP require bus aid on the vehicle to assist student. There could be seizures, there could be other situations, like if it's a wheelchair child, we need 2 people in a vehicle to offload and secure a wheelchair. So if IEP has requests for aid, we have to provide it legally. That's basic. If there is no aid requirement, we won't have aid on the vehicle.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that explanation. Are there any questions from the community?
Do not see any hands.
Okay, thank you. Are we good to move this forward?
Yes, Melanie, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, next item. The well-known E+ symbol is the next item on the agenda. And let's see.
That's Bob Catalano with us.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't get to my page with the name on it.
All right. Good morning. Thank you.
Thanks.
This
Good
is
morning.
a renewal of our VMware vSphere Enterprise license. This is our subscription, is how we virtualize all of our servers here in-house. So we don't need to buy physical servers to do everything we need to do. This allows us to virtualize them. We have approximately 180 virtual servers that helps us provide the infrastructure and backbone for the district and all of its services from the technology standpoint. This is a renewal. It's in the budget for next year, and it's a one-year agreement.
1 year. Okay. Thank you very much. So this is for the cloud drives you're talking about, or?
This is for all of our internal services, things we do. It's not cloud. These are things we do on-prem here at the district.
Oh, so it's actually hard servers.
Virtually.
Virtually. Okay, got it.
If we didn't do this, we'd have to buy multiple physical servers, and the cost would be very extreme. This allows us to virtualize the servers, to take advantage of all the hardware we have, and save money in the long run.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board?
No,
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Jason, I think you can go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, just to reiterate to the community that we had asked this question, I think it was last year, that it would be significantly, astronomically priced to have all of that for us to maintain and to have our own servers on site. So that's why we do it virtually. And that this is my understanding is this is the common practice of other districts as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any questions from the community?
Seltzer.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Colano said 180 servers, but you're buying 302.
The licensing model goes by processor. So some of our
okay.
one processor, some have multiple processors. So that their license by processor in the server.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for your question. Okay. Are there any other questions?
I do not see any other hands.
Okay, thanks. We're good to move this one forward?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes.
yes.
Okay. And next is the Villanova University graduations, which will be in June this year, and it would be the second year at Villanova.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's attached to this, and I'm going to open it up. Mr. Stroop did a lot of the legwork on this, and as Ms. Schaftmeister noted, this would be the second year Villanova would potentially be our host for these events. Historically, as many may know or recall, St. Joe's was the venue. That venue is under construction, not available to us. We did have a lot of positive feedback regarding the use of the Villanova venue. One, because it's larger and we could accommodate more family members, and that was a positive, as well as some other details that site offers that St. Joe's does not. But as it stands, St. Joe's is not available to us this year, which is why we went in this direction. And so again, the legwork on this, credit to Mr. Stroop. And if there's questions, we can try to tag team those responses.
For what it's worth, I liked Villanova even better than St. Joe's as a venue and as a way to get in and out of it. So I think it's great that we're going with them again this year.
Yeah, would second that as well. Kimberly, Jason, any input?
No, I'm fine with it.
I just wanted to note, just because we had this discussion last year as well, is that it is slightly more than the St. Joe's. I think it's about $5,000 more, but unfortunately, based on the size of our graduating class, as well as the opportunity to invite parents and loved ones and friends, this was really the only facility within the area that would be able to accommodate us. So, and I echo what Shana and Melanie had indicated, that it seemed like it was a very successful graduation last year as well.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the community?
Do not see any hands.
Okay, then are we good to move this forward?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So next is the district-wide security assessment, and Ms. Schaefer, you're up again.
Me again.
Yeah.
This item that's for review. I'm not sure why. I believe there was I'm not seeing it, a cost associated with this that's not reflected here. Oh, there it is under the administrative content. We have over the past few years been looking for an opportunity to refresh a large-scale security audit that we did in 2019 with an outside vendor that gives, just broadly speaking, an opportunity for some other third-party entity to come in and look at our security and safety protocols in ways that may introduce us to different ways of thinking, to recommendations in terms of best practices, current trends, et cetera. We ourselves are routinely engaged in conversations about our safety and security measures in the district, working to refine those, as you've seen in recent meetings, talking about updating security cameras, for example, and the investment there and making sure that those are all functioning and that we have the requisite technology and support that we need to be able to access important footage like that in real time for the safety and security of our buildings and students and staff, et cetera. So that said, this refresh was something we've been working towards for the last year or so. More recently, we did issue an RFP to some interested vendors to see what that might look like in terms of cost and scope. One of those vendors that we're recommending, the administration is recommending, is Cardinal Point Security Group. There's a lot of benefits, we believe, to partnering with them. They broke down their proposal in three parts. One was the physical safety and security component. There was another behavioral health supports, and then full-scale exercise. Right now, in terms of the priority is to refresh the physical safety and security audit, which is that component is $36,000 for all of our schools to work through that aspect of the audit. The other two pieces, we're still looking at potentially to partner with other entities that may be at a reduced cost to us and may offer other important perspectives. And I'll defer to Ms. Frazier to answer some of those questions if we have those today. But again, for today, that those components aren't being moved forward for review and approval. It's really to refresh that physical security and safety piece in this time frame under this budget. If we are able to move forward soon with this particular piece of it, we believe we'll be able to get our final report before May of this year, which will allow us to, again, incorporate some of the recommendations into our planning for the future, for next year in particular. So that's what's being recommended today for consideration by the committee.
Thank you.
Is there a contract that we're looking at? Because it's the only item I'm seeing that doesn't have an attachment on the agenda.
I see that that's not there. And historically, based on a safety and security audit, sometimes we've been more sensitive to what we put out in the public domain because of the nature, the sensitive nature of it. we can make that available. Like it's noted as for solicitor review. So there are pieces, because it's only a part of the proposal that we are, asking to move forward with, but that certainly will be available for your review.
Yeah, I
it's
totally
unlawful, so-
understand not making that a public document, but I think before we,
For sure.
as a full board, at least ask to spend money on this large scale assessment, that we should at least have it doesn't need to be super detailed, but just at least an outline of what we're authorizing funds on.
Yep,
Or yeah,
absolutely.
for
Yeah.
Monday. Thank
And
you.
we will make that available. Appreciate it.
So yeah, Melanie and I have had an opportunity to take a look at it, and I agree with what Ms. Shaver indicated about, for a safety and security standpoint. It does list particular actions that would be taken and what they would be looking at, so that might compromise things if that stuff was made public. But yeah, if we could provide that, that'd be great. I had two questions. Just the first was that have we spoken to anyone that has used this company before and have as a reference, so that we're comfortable that this company will do the job that we're expecting them to do?
We do. I don't believe Mr. Witt is able to join us today, but that's my understanding that we have done that due diligence. We also are familiar. Oh, I see Mr. Pitts is here. We also are familiar with the members of the team, as they are a local team, which is one of the reasons we are recommending that we move forward with them. They have local ties organizationally and within Montgomery County. I see Mr. Pitts, did you want to jump in?
So to clarify and expand on some of the things that Ms. Schaefer has just said. Yes, Cardinal Point has done several in the district. Mr. Witt had contacted references, got very good feedback from them, and they are specifically approved by some of the Harrisburg agencies, including PCCD.
Perfect. The second question I would just ask is that if you are providing the board or the people in this committee, I would assume the board, a copy or a portion of the contract, it would be helpful to see at least one of the other ones, just so that we can kind of compare and just make sure that there's no other services that potentially another company is offering that we would want to include on this contract. So that'd be the second thing. And then the third is just that I think it's wonderful. I really appreciate all the efforts by the administration on this. This is something that I think is really important, unfortunately, in the climate that we live in. And I think it's really important to keep this regularly. And I can't thank enough the administration for moving this forward and making sure that we get this going prior to the budget process, or in tandem with the budget process, so that if there are requirements that Cardinal were to come back with, that we would have the ability to potentially use to add that into the budget. We had explored, just for the community's benefit, I believe the administration has also explored possibly using the state police or the Secret Service that offers this at a reduced or a no cost, but there is a massive line for those services, and it would take years potentially for us to utilize that. And the administration, and I agree, has deemed that this is something, since we haven't dealt with a security refresh in several years, almost 6 years, that this is something that should be tended to sooner than later. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. Agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. Kimberly, did you have any other question? Or I have a question?
No, because I recall that Megan discussed this last year, if my recollection serves me correctly. Is that right, Megan?
I've talked about it a few times over the years,
Okay.
but you're probably
I thought
remembering that correctly. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just have one question that's not really about this contract. I was just looking at the other components of it. If we're looking for the behavioral point, I wondered how, when you're looking at groups, are you? We have this the critical assessment team and prepare that we use, and how are those involved? Is everybody on that team involved in this, in the reviews of the RFP that goes out? And
So you referenced Mr. Pitt and Mr. Pitts and Mr. Witt are both on that team, Ms. Frazier. And yes, we have a safety and crisis response team that meets regularly, and they've been a part of the conversations relative to recommendations. So the team does recommend moving forward with Cardinal Point, and we also recommend that we consider the other pieces, for the future. So we're continuing to have those discussions. Mr. Weinstein's on that team, et cetera. So thank you for that question.
okay, thanks. Appreciate explaining that. Okay. Are there any questions from the community?
Yes, Judy, but I don't see a last name.
My name is Judy Turetsky. I live in Bala Cynwyd. I'm wondering whether it would be worth getting on the list of the free service so that when it's time for us to have our next refresh, we would be able to do it for free.
So we're in line. We've submitted applications for each one of our schools, and so we're hoping the same, that maybe the next time we're due for a refresh, we'll be at the top of that list.
Great, thank you.
And Megan, just so that the community knows, I mean, this isn't like we put ourselves on the list yesterday. I believe you put it back in September, October when we started this discussion about security, correct?
It was, yes, in September.
So we proactive, well, the administration proactively put our name on these lists so that we could get the ball rolling. We were hopeful and optimistic that maybe it would be sooner than later, but with the time period, we're going to keep our names on the list, but we thought that it was important to move forward with it now.
Yeah. Sure. I'd also, I'm sorry. I'd also add, just for clarity, the applications are school by school. So one of the benefits of doing it this way is we know all schools will benefit from this audit, whereas with the free audit, there's a possibility that one school or two schools could be selected and others aren't. So it's just, we'll continue to see what happens with that and hold our place in line.
Great, thank you.
Signs.
Hi, thank you, Angel Hines, and I live in Wynwood. I just had a quick question because I might have missed when you first started on this topic. This is for an assessment, a review of our security at our schools, not to implement like having officers or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just want to be clear.
It would be whatever we would receive recommendations, which would then be something for our consideration and something we would definitely be bringing back to, a committee and for public feedback on any recommendation moving forward.
Got it. And just a quick Google search of Cardinal Security Service brings up where Norristown School Board rejected a renewal of their contract. So, but it seems in the article, it's more about an issue with the officers on site and their professionalism. So I just thought that'd be something to note in the review of the contract.
Thank you.
Thanks for that feedback. Okay.
And maybe in anticipation of the meeting on Monday, Ms. Schaefer, if we could just have the references of who you spoke with, what other schools have used them, I think that would be helpful for the board just in evaluating the contract.
Absolutely.
Okay. So are we good to move this forward?
Yes, please.
I'm assuming with the information provided to the full board.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, we're going for the roof assessment. That's Mr. Lill.
Thank you, Ms. Schaffmeister. We're all familiar with the school district's long-term capital project plan for district facilities, which we frequently point out is a living document that's continuously evaluated and updated. So when we're putting that plan together and as we continue to update that plan, the administrator analyzes various information and assessments to develop that forecast for future infrastructure replacement or upgrades. So specific to upcoming roof projects, the administration recently issued a request for proposal for consultants to perform roof condition assessments. Now, I want to clarify, we sent this request for proposal to firms that are independent consulting type firms. We did not provide this RFP to any companies that sell roofing materials or install roofing. We were really looking for an impartial professional evaluation. And if you look at the proposal document that's on the screen currently in board docs, it has multiple pages. The first page is really the price tag, if you will. Moving down in the document, pages 2 through 11 of that attachment, that's the actual RFP itself, which describes the scope of what this consultant would do. And I'll try to hit some of the highlights as quickly as I can. This would require this consultant or this firm to do a physical assessment of the roof, the things that you can visually identify in terms of any defects and the severity of any of those concerns. The other technology that these firms have available are non-destructive testing methods, specifically a moisture intrusion survey. That will help you to determine issues that within the roof or within the roof system that simply aren't visible from the naked eye, if you will. This actually can tell you where some wet insulation has begun and what type of issues that we'd be dealing with there. And then for each of the roofs, and I apologize, I should have stated this up front, we're asking them to assess the roof on the district administration building, also Harrington High School and Lower Merion High School. That's the scope of this project, and the pricing was broken out per building. We would get a full report on each of those roofs based on that assessment, the moisture intrusion survey results, and then we want the consultant to give us their recommended repairs, critical, short-term, long-term, and ongoing. And then that would also the report would include the professional's recommendation for when the current roofing system should be recoated or replaced. And again, a lot of that will be determined on their findings and the data that they collect. And then they can also give us their opinion of the probable construction cost for what they would recommend as the next steps with these 3 roofs. If the Facilities and Purchasing Committee is interested, after this report is complete, I do have arrangements that this consultant could do a brief presentation to the F&P committee. Now, again, that would be that would not take place until after the report is complete. But getting to the actual request here, after reviewing the proposals, checking references, and discussing the scope of the assignment with all the firms who's responded, we're recommending a company, Roof Systems Consulting Company. They would do the full scope of the RFP at a fee of $28,500. And the only disclaimer I would put out there would be the timeline for when we complete this work is really contingent on weather conditions. Extremely cold conditions and snow cover would limit the ability to physically perform the work and some of the intrusion surveys. So we certainly wouldn't be able to have anybody up there looking at roof conditions on a snow-covered roof this week. And I think it'd also be cruel and unusual punishment to have someone up on the roof with negative wind chills. So we're hoping for some warmer weather and we're also hoping for board approval. And the way that this would work, what you see on the screen now are some terms and conditions that are very commonly used when we hire architects, engineers, consultants, professionals of that nature. These are just standard terms and conditions that our legal counsel has put together. Justin O'Donoghue reviewed them earlier this month. And at the bottom of that document, Roof Systems Consulting Company has already signed on the dotted line on their end, and then contingent upon board approval, the board secretary could fill in the other blanks. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lill. And agree with you. It would be a cruel and unusual punishment to send somebody up there. And I guess we'd like a little bit weather to be able to see if there's any moisture intrusion. So to the rest of the board, do you have any questions?
No, thank you. We've discussed this many times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry if I missed it. Was there like an ideal timeline for when we were hoping to get it done, or is it just they'll do it as soon as weather permits?
This spring.
I did put one in there, Ms. Kalish, and again, I'm gonna put out the disclaimer that it's optimistic considering like what's going on right now with the weather. Let me just flip to that page.
I'm
Contingent
sure I
upon.
just missed it while I was looking
No,
through.
you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Paragraph 2 was a project timeline, and we incorporated in these steps today's facility and purchasing committee, and then also the school board approval on the 27th. If possible, we'd like to have them get the field work done sometime in February.
Okay.
That would get the report done to us at the end of February, and then possibly have a presentation to you in March. However, if you look on that document, it would be page 2 of the attachment that's on the screen, you will notice asterisks, and that's very much driven by we would not be able to do it under these conditions, but every one of the consultants is in agreement that they have the resources to do the work. It's not just like an indefinite, open-ended, but we also have to be realistic about the snow cover and also cruel and unusual punishment of what would happen in current weather conditions.
Of course, even if we push back that timeline a little bit, you would still have enough time to get the board the information we'd need before approving a budget item on this kind of thing.
I would agree with that. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd love to have this information sooner than later, which is why March was the pie in the sky, if you will. As again, I'm typing the RFP and reading them, and snow is falling, and it's single-digit temperatures. Yes, I mean April.
Snow's falling.
May.
You're like half a mile from me. There's no snow.
I was referring to Sunday.
Okay.
And I would also like to congratulate and thank our crews for clearing everything Monday.
Yes, thank you.
The March date is, I'm going to admit, I'm going to kind of find it is very, very optimistic, but that means we're just ready to go. And by April, we should be, I would hope, into warmer and no snow conditions.
Oh, absolutely. I concur. Thank you.
And isn't April when facilities is on the budget agenda as well?
Oh, I wanted to get way ahead of it. I was trying to get ahead of the schedule a little bit, but again, I'm also recognizing we are at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Yes, that's right. Jason, did you have any questions?
Have we, as for this company, have we checked any references, or did we receive any references from local schools or others that have used them?
Multiple.
Okay. And they've been all satisfactory.
Correct. We actually were, another school district actually gave us the lead, and then we were able to find additional people. So we've done a very thorough vetting.
Perfect. And then I think it's great that we're moving this forward. Both, as we've mentioned before, all three of these roofs have either reached or kind of exceeded their life expectancy based on years. And I think that this provides us with a lot more information as to whether or not and how we can kind of address them, whether it be replacing them, renovating them, partially. So this is great. So really appreciate all the work that you guys have put into this. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, thank you. Just curious, like, do they have special equipment that we went, like, like you just send somebody up to get to the roof that they can figure out? Will they have to to look at like the moisture depth? Do they have a special tool or something they have to use to figure that? And
the technology I was referring to, which was the moisture intrusion, that's actually traditionally performed via infrared equipment. Now there's different technologies out there. It's actually reached the point I'm accustomed to people standing there walking across the roof with the infrared equipment, and then it's looking at the temperature differential to tell you where your insulation is not performing. And if it's not performing, that means it's wet. They're actually flying those now with drones.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
So they can actually get it done more efficiently because they don't have that. They have a better way to cover the area.
So will we get a video that we can watch?
It'll be a lot of white roof and a bunch of air handlers. It would be a highlight for me. But yeah, you're going to see a lot of HVAC equipment and some exhaust fans. But happy to share.
Okay. Appreciate that. Thanks. So, are there any questions from the community about this?
I do not see any hands.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so just I saw there was a new chat message. I was just checking it was not up on this topic. So are we good to move this forward from the board for the
Yes,
next?
please.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the elementary school playgrounds, which I think there's probably a lot of people up here interested in this.
So continuing on discussions that we had during December, we do acknowledge this is it's a topic that has a significant amount of interest, and it's also something that has to be considered as part of the budgeting process moving forward. Since that December conversation, many people pointed out some of the recent work that the Township of Lower Merion has done. Parks and Recreation, again, as always, is a phenomenal organization. And they've had some ability to upgrade a few playgrounds. The one that I think most people are familiar with is South Ardmore Park. It's actually a playground where my children played many years ago. That is in the middle of a renovation. All of the new equipment is in. The pour-in-place surface that would be needed in order for that to function can't be installed with these weather conditions. But driving and looking at that both on the plans that the township shared with us and physically what's out there, you can see the various components that are being installed, and a lot of that with sensory equipment and things of that nature that are traditionally not part of what were playgrounds, but certainly what are definitely necessary for the universal design that we're looking for. I know it sounds like I was very traumatized by that snowstorm. I was not, but on Tuesday morning, while driving through various neighborhoods to look at road conditions at 4 a.m, I noticed St. Paul's in East Spring has a playground that was recently redone or renovated by this township. Again, I couldn't get in there or play on any of the swings because of the snow. But looking at the various components that they have there, it almost has a little store and a little house that looks like something. I don't want to call it Dr. Seuss, but it has that type of a playhouse type of feel. And it also has various things that you could tell are of sensory input and things of that nature, and the accessibility with the ramps versus steps and things of that nature. That's the overall concept for where any playground should be. Where we are, and I think I stated this at the meeting last month, as a facilities department, we will execute any project that's authorized. Now, in order for it to be authorized, there's a couple of things that have to take place, one of which is the funding. And in addition to that, then you have all of the code requirements, regulatory requirements, and also contracting requirements. But again, this is an ongoing discussion that also has to be taken within the context and within the scope of the budget conversations that are also ongoing.
Thank you, Mr. Lill. And just to let everybody know who's interested, we all support having accessible playground, but as Mr. Lill said, there is a process, and we need to work through that process to ensure that we can have, especially with funding and with planning. So do any of the board members have any questions about this update?
Sure. So first, I think it's wonderful that we're trying to move things forward. I think that renovating our playgrounds is extremely important, and I think making them accessible so that every child's able to use them, I think, is extremely important. Couple of things. The first thing is that there's been some feedback on some of the rubber that's used. And I was just curious if we've explored other options. I know that in Pennsylvania, I think in Philly, in FDR Park, they used cork, which is a different kind of wood. There's been it's crushed up tires have led to health concerns. So when we think about accessibility and accessible playgrounds, I want to make sure that we're doing something that's safe for our children. So I don't know if we've looked at that. What my suggestion would be, and I don't know if this is feasible, but there's been an enormous amount of interest in our community, both parents as well as parents of children as well that go to the school, as well as those that don't go to schools but also use our facilities. And people have expressed an interest in trying to move this forward, whether it be from a budgeting standpoint, which could include maybe looking at sponsorships, like the 76ers or the Rothman Institute or big donors potentially, Others have shared interest in potentially helping with the design and ultimately what would make it accessible or not. My suggestion would be is if it's possible, is there a way to maybe create a subcommittee where we involve the community and parents that focus just on the school playgrounds, where they can we can all work towards this common goal and can maybe help with, maybe looking at, the finances, the financial component of it, and some of these other designs that maybe there are people in the community and parents that have special knowledge or special skills in this stuff that we could tap as a resource. I guess that was more of a question to the administration if that's been done before, but I just thought that maybe that was a good option. I have no problem helping with that or spearheading that, but working with the committee and with our committee, the facilities and purchasing, and also with the administration, but, maybe looking towards, resolving some of these like financial questions, some of these design questions, some of these accessibility questions, so that we have help so we can continue to move this forward.
Yeah, Jason, let me jump in. I think that's a great idea and one that's utilized across the nation, and especially in playground design, because there's probably 100 ways you can go about this. And I think that's a wonderful suggestion. I'd love to see us begin to put that together. And over the coming weeks, Frank would get involved, and I think it's a great suggestion.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mussolini. And for people who have not met him before, welcome Dr. Mussolini, who is our interim until Frank Ranelli, Dr. Ranelli takes over. Okay, now, do we have any further questions from the board? Or Jason, did you have any further things you had to ask?
No. So I think maybe if that works with Dr. Mussolini, maybe what we can do is that over the next week or two, we can kind of brainstorm of how we would open this up to the community, this subcommittee or task force or however way we want to term it, and get the community involved and get people on it. And then we can kind of spearhead that, and they can work in tandem with the administration and with this committee to kind of further explore these types of questions and these types of issues. And we can use the community as a resource, because the stuff that I've already received from some of the community members has been phenomenal. And I think it would be really helpful to have like one channel that's going so that everyone's working together towards this common goal as opposed to independently.
Yeah, maybe we can use the models that we used for perhaps either the full day kindergarten or for the start times committee. We've had a lot of committees that have done sort of been groups of community members of various levels of stakeholders, and then also administrators and teachers. So everybody that's an interested party.
Yeah.
I think that sounds great. Thanks, Shanna.
Sorry. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I did want to ask Mr. Lill just a couple of questions. I wanted to confirm the number of playgrounds that we own, and what do you estimate the cost of creating fully inclusive, not accessible, but fully inclusive playgrounds? Because that's different language. It means something different to just be accessible versus being fully inclusive. Do we have any information about that?
So to answer that question, I would refer you to the playgrounds presentation that was made to the Facilities and Purchasing Committee in October of 2024, which is still available in board docs. So getting to the numbers, currently we have 14 different playgrounds across the 6 elementary schools. What Mr. Copeland did, and that's Bob Copeland, who's the operations department project manager. What he did in that October presentation to the Facilities and Purchasing Committee was he didn't just look at it as one school. He looked at, for example, Penn-Wynn. There's a playground on the one side, and then there's another area where there are 2 turtles. He broke those up into 2 different areas. That's why you would see 14 playgrounds across 6 elementary schools. There's a potential for an additional playground at Marion. That would be the 15th, if you will. And that was also part of his presentation, the photos and then the different assessment of the condition that they're currently in and what some of the recommendations would be moving forward. So in terms of the aspect of it from dollar amount, and you spoke about not just having ADA accessibility and inclusivity, we are trying to develop this concept of universal design that really helps to meet the needs of students in all aspects, and that is a very wide goal. The conceptual cost for that end product, if you will, that was around $2.9 million based on our initial assessments, and we're still working on getting more detailed information to get those prices more specific, not just for a specific playground, but for as a whole. But this is a $3 million endeavor.
For all 14 or 15 playgrounds?
Correct.
Okay.
The entire
Thank
district.
you. Thank
It
you.
was about, when we looked at it before, it was somewhere around, and again, it was, we obviously, they streamlined the design. Every school would be a little bit different, maybe more than less. But I think on average, it was around $150,000 to $175,000 potentially if you did a really nice playground with the substance below it, maybe even a teeny bit more. So 150 to 200. But again, it depends on the space. At some schools, even though there might be 2 playgrounds now, maybe what they would do is potentially renovate it and do 1 new playground. Like, that's design stuff that could be worked out later on. But generally speaking, you're looking at somewhere between like 150 to 175,000. It seemed like per playground. And the total budget would be somewhere between 2.5 and $3 million for that.
What we're starting to notice it's trending more towards 200,000. Now, of course, there's things we have to look at because clearly we have to have a defined scope. We can't have a $700,000 playground design just for 1 playground with 14 of them. That's just not practical. But we're starting to notice, Mr. Herman, that as we get more into the details and including all the various aspects that we certainly find important, it's definitely crossing that $200,000 threshold per playground. But again, that's a rule of thumb. As you stated, no 2 playgrounds are the same. So that's part of our process.
And it should also be noted for the community that we have an intergovernmental meeting that we do with the commissioners, which I'm a part of. And we have been speaking to the commissioners about ways that from a community standpoint or from a township standpoint, are there ways to avoid certain types of fees if we were to go down the road of renovating the playgrounds to kind of limit some of those costs. So those are ongoing discussions, and we've also been using them as a resource since they're going through the process now of renovating their playgrounds as well. Should we open it up to community comment at this point, Melanie?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to do. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. And Denise, if you
Yeah, sure. Ms. Schreiber, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I was wondering, I just heard Mr.
I'm
Lill
sorry, Tanya, can you please state your name and where you reside within the district? That's okay.
Tanya Schreiber, Penwin. And Mr. Lill mentioned 2 playgrounds at Penwin, but in the summer of 2022, the board voted and they added a 3rd asphalt play space. It was on the agendas, et cetera. And my concern is, first of all, that it's excluded from these conversations. But my greater concern is when it was built during the design process, it went through tentative sketch and preliminary plan, but it waived final plan. So the ADA compliance designs were never presented publicly. And I'm not sure if then there was a miscommunication with the contractor. But when it was actually installed, it's separate from the inclusive design that we've been talking about. The ADA requirements for play spaces require certain slopes, et cetera. And I don't think that the asphalt play space, which I guess would be playground number 3, ever went through ADA review. If it did, I think it may have broken down or somehow the installation didn't conform with the design, because I knew that the original design discussed retention walls, etc., to accommodate the slope issue and avoid installing swales, etc. Anyway, I just wanted to know if Mr. Lill could fill us in on what kind of happened and why that hasn't been included in the playground assessments.
So I guess since we're specific to Penn Win, I guess I should just try to do a lay of the land. What we're referring to at Penn Win, we have a playground, we call it playground number 1. That's the one that has the existing equipment that's out there today with the various swings and play structures. And that has the mulch area, and just checking my notes, portions of that playground 1 were installed in 2022. I believe that's when that school went through some major renovations. I'm sorry.
That's the wood chips is playground number 1. The turtle playground's playground number 2. And if you look at the presentation in November, there's red squares around those 2. There was a third one installed that's not in either of the squares.
So as I was saying,
sorry,
those were the 2 playgrounds that I identified, which we're both saying the same thing because we're working off of the same graphics. We did not identify the hard surface play area behind the school, behind the cafetorium. That's a hard surface play area that's utilized very frequently by students. What we really want to do, and actually that hard surface play area is going to give us some of the flexibility. Playground number 2, and again, I want to make sure we're talking about the same ones. That's over by where the principal's office currently is. Playground number 2 consists of some very, very old pour-in-place surface that was installed in 2002, and 2 turtles, 2 play structures that are literally turtles. They've been there since 2002. They really aren't meeting the needs of a playground structure at any level for any type of utilization. So because we now have that hard surface play area behind the cafetorium, which I'm not going to refer to with a playground designation, it is a hard surface play area, but it doesn't have any structures on it. Because we have that, we actually have some space now over by the current principal's office to put some legitimate playground equipment over there and replace or enshrine the turtles. That's an area that really we need some help. In terms of your question about permitting and any defects, the installation of the hard surface play area was fully permitted. We have no ADA defects. It's basically a flat surface where they have Foursquare and other things that kids can do, like hopscotch and things of that nature. There is no equipment there. A tentative sketch was approved, preliminary plan was approved, and we're still waiting for feedback from the township to resolve some issues before that can be recorded.
The final plan hasn't been recorded because
that is correct.
Because it's an 8-foot slope from one end to the other. It can't be flat because there was an 8-foot slope.
It's the percentage, okay? It's the rise and the run. And again, there's no barriers there involving a wheelchair. It's a flat surface.
All right.
Okay.
I just want to just add also that, like, even though we have those specific playgrounds listed, I mean, I don't think we're wed. I don't think any of us believe that we're wed to those specific, like, that it has to be that specific area or that's the design. The way I envision is that through working with like the CSE and working with, parents and working with the administration and the principals at the schools, we can develop the best, setup possible with the space that we have. And that's part of like involving the community in that process.
Yeah. Good point.
Mel, I have one more question. Regarding the playgrounds, the $3 million tentatively that was quoted, does that include the cost of demolition?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
And sorry, one last thing. I apologize. I'm jumping in. It also should be noted that the administration, which we really appreciate, has put in for grants that were potentially feasible So it takes time and we might not be awarded them, but at least we have started the process of seeking out grants to help potentially pay for a portion of it. But my hope as part of the committee, if that subcommittee, is to see if there's any other types of grants that maybe the community knows about or can reach out to as well.
Mr. Herman, if I could, just a clarification. Sure. The one grant that I did bring to your attention, the portal for that grant, I think opened 2 days ago. So I can't say that we have submitted that grant application. Again, the portal only opened about 2 days ago and it's due in April. And in order to submit for that grant and many similar grants, we would need school board approval. So I would just like to identify that one as a more to follow. We have not mailed that in. It's not at that point in the process yet.
I appreciate that. So what we can do is, in the meantime, is maybe you could let us know what the requirements are of that. So whatever approval, if it's just school board approval, but if we need design, whatever the requirements are, so that at least we can start the process of the grants, would be really helpful. So that we can at least get our name and get the information submitted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any way we can help in that, let us. I think Jason and I both would agree. Would assist as we can.
Okay, we ready? Next is Ms. Hines.
Go ahead, Ms. Hines.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I was struggling to get off mute. I think my questions were answered because I was wondering if I had suggestions on some grants that I know that are out there for these projects, who on the committee should I send this information to, or at the administration?
I mean, that would be amazing. If you want to send it, I think, Dr. Micheline, I think probably the best would be to send it to Mr. Lil, right? And if you want to CC maybe Melanie and I on it, that would be helpful. I don't know, okay. Dr. Micheline, what do you think would be appropriate?
If I can jump in, I think probably community comments at lmsb250123facilities2 is the email address, because that way all board members will see the information. It just saves us a step of then forwarding it to everybody else.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm a community member, but I'm also an advocate, and I've reviewed grants for these before, so whatever I can do to help in this, I'm happy to help out however I can.
We receive I understand that we have the community input, community comments, but I feel like sometimes things get lost in that. I have no problem sharing it with the rest of the board. I think it would be better, since it's coming out of this committee. I would love to actually us receive it so that we know that we received it. Is there any way that for information like this, we can have it addressed to our committee, or do you want to keep it with the community comments? We can do that.
Why don't we do community comments and anybody can CC both you and I as the coach.
Yeah, would that be okay, Ms. Hines?
Yeah, that's fine.
That'd be great.
And if you put facilities committee in the title, then that'll be a good flag as we're going through reading our emails to jump out a little.
Yeah.
I can tell you that anything that comes to the community comments, if it's anywhere related to facilities, Ms. Buckman will have it in my inbox almost instantaneously.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. And thank you for your offers.
Sorry about that. Next we have Ms. Herman.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm Kara Herman from Bala Kinwood. I'm also the president of the Lower Merion School District Committee for Special Education. I just wanted to take a moment to, thank the community for an outpouring of support regarding accessible playgrounds. And as was brought up here, there is a difference between wheelchair accessibility and full accessibility and sensory needs and inclusivity on playgrounds. I do think that there's a misunderstanding, so to speak. And I just wanted to provide some clarification. And Kimberly Frazier, I know that you're on this call, and I'm hoping that you can chime in after I'm done speaking to address something. But I think that we're hearing some feedback from parent guardians, being very upset, thinking that there are students in this school district who currently do not have access to reach the playgrounds, not understanding that there are protections in place, including IEPs, 504s, GIEP, legal documents that provide them access. And I think that you have some members of the community making assumptions that there are children with motility issues and motility equipment sitting indoors while their peers are outside playing. And I wanted to make sure that our community heard from the school district regarding that, and that there was an understanding that kids like my own, I'll put that out there, my son is a student at Lower School District and uses a wheelchair, have accommodations put in place to provide them accessibility. That's number one. Number two, I also wanted to discuss just let the community know that we were invited to have a seat at the table. We mean CSE, the Committee for Special Education, with Lower Merion School District months ago, before this topic was even broached at this committee meeting, to be able to partner and hear community feedback and provide representation as well as perspective, and just, a group of parents looking at it through the parent lens rather than the school district lens, and are very pleased to be part of the conversation. I also think that maybe that might not be well known out there, that we have sat in meetings. We are welcoming the opportunity to continue to participate in meetings and provide some feedback and an exchange of ideas. I know, Larry Mussolini, we haven't had that meeting with you yet, but we have had that meeting with Megan Schaefer and members of the special education department in the room, as well as members of the facilities department. And we have no reason to, think that we won't continue to be invited to participate going forward. And we thank you for that continuing opportunity. Of course, we'd like to see things move quickly rather than slowly, but the timeline is what it is, and budget approval and board voting and all of that good stuff. I did also want to say we love the idea, of course, of having additional community participation regarding a subcommittee or whatever else might be decided upon. And we do have some examples that we'd like to forward to you of questionnaires that other school districts or townships or private organizations have sent out prior to building their accessible play spaces. And we'd be happy to forward some of that information to you shortly. Thank you.
Thanks, Cara. Please do forward that information. And I appreciate you bringing up the fact that there are surfaces. Every school has a surface that's accessible for students that are living with a physical disability. I don't know.
Again, I'd love for Kimberly to be able to speak to some of that, if that's okay.
Come on. I just also briefly, like Kara, I feel like you did a nice job, and thank you for, inviting me into the conversation. Part of one thing that you didn't mention, Kara, is like Dr. Stephanie Doyle, who is one of our supervisors of special education at the elementary level, has partnered with Mr. Copeland when he was going through and preparing the presentation and going out to the elementary schools. So we've also been active participants in this investigatory part of this and process as we make recommendations as we move forward. And I guess sometimes people say like 3 times saying it is the charm. Multiple people have mentioned accessibility is distinctly different than like creating spaces that encourage and enhance play with peers. And so that's, one thing that's being looked at.
Okay, thank you.
We ready for the next person? That's Miss Garner.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sana Garner. I live in Ardmore. I also wanted to thank the school board for your support on inclusive playgrounds. I wanted to just follow up on the question or the comment that was made in December about the matrix that the ops team had compiled, and it was sent to the superintendent's office. And I know that that the facilities team was asking for that and asking for that to be made public. So I was just wondering if that had been made public, the playground renovation assessment matrix. And then also I just wanted to ask a second question, which was if we in the community are interested in participating in that subcommittee, would we email Melanie, you and Jason, and also copy the community comments just to make sure that like we could throw our hats in that ring?
Yeah, I would, for that question, I can answer that. Yes, do that and indicate it's for the facilities and the playground.
Okay.
And that's not an established committee. That's just an idea that we were.
Yeah,
an idea. Yeah, good point.
So,
yeah.
no, I just wanted to make clear that as things like that are established and become sort of an official entity rather than just a good idea, there will be communication from the board and from the administration to the public, and there will be opportunities to sign up at that point. So you don't have to worry about things passing you by. If you don't, it's not a first dibs before it's a thing that even exists. We want lots of opinions, and there will be opportunity to get it in there.
Cool, great, thank you.
Dr. Mussolini, what's the protocol to create a subcommittee? Like, is that something that we can do? Like,
Sure, Jason, we can set that up. Again, solicit from the community who would like to be involved and get in. And I think critically would be what are the parameters? What are our goals of that committee? Would it be designing the playgrounds? Would it be choosing which one is on the runway first? I just want to make sure I understand, because we're all in agreement that we want to have something done. So that's kind of off the table. It's not whether sometimes you set committees up, do we want to do something or not? We want to do something. So what would be the overall goal?
so maybe what we could do is we can talk if we have time before Monday, because we have the board meeting, and then if there's additional information for the community that we have, I know it's a short turnaround time, but maybe we could provide that information at the board meeting as part of our committee update. If not, then we can at least provide information as to when that subcommittee will be established and how one would get involved in that. So is that realistic from the admin and from the admin standpoint? Like, could we
and again, the overarching goals of the committee, like what is it that we're studying? That's the critical component. We can send information out to the community, invite people to be a part of a committee. Again, I'm looking for the direction of the goals. We're in agreement that we want to do this. Would we be looking at architectural firms to begin the design phase? That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a standpoint, I think the two big impediments are one, finance. So I would think that part of the committee could brainstorm about, like, I was brought up by Ms. Hines, like, what other grants, what other, if we wanted to potentially explore the role of sponsorship, do we have connections to people in the community, have connections to, organizations, Mainline Health, 76ers, Rothman Institute that we actually partner with on other stuff. Could we use the community to utilize those resources to come up with the funding kind of piece of it, or at least kind of explore that? Even, maybe tap into HSAs, right? And to the ISC, so the funding, I think, is one piece of it, and to explore our different options. I think the other piece is I don't think we should be in the position as a subcommittee of determining what schools get chosen. I think that the administration, Jim, Mr. Lill, and Mr. Copeland have done a good job kind of evaluating based on what they think, based on their needs. So I don't know if we should get into that piece, but I do think getting an idea from the community and different individuals, especially those that would potentially have children that would be able to utilize this accessibility, or have information about accessible playgrounds already. Maybe they could provide us with design ideas, companies that potentially they've explored, or different designs that might be beneficial. if there are other organizations, like I mentioned, that there's a place in Philly that has a cork as opposed that uses like wood as opposed to rubber, maybe we could utilize that to find out if there's any, do the research and the behind the scenes of like, are there any other surfaces that would be wheelchair accessible but are not the rubber, those types of things where we could kind of utilize it as a fact gathering kind of from the finance, from the design, and then report back hopefully to this committee and to the admin, and then we can kind of figure out, where do we go from there.
Can I make a suggestion, Jason?
Sure.
This doesn't seem like I know this is going to sound nitpicky, but subcommittee is not really what I would call it, because a subcommittee implies a subcommittee of the board. And because we're working with more than just our board members, it would not be a committee of the board. It would be a community committee. And I think we really need to lean on the structures that we already have established for that type of community. I think if you want something, sorry, I know this sounds behind my head. I think if we want something, frankly, I think what you're asking for Monday night is a really big ask. And so maybe as a first step, if we really want to give people the opportunity to weigh in, we could have like an email address at lmsd.org set up. Maybe it was like playgrounds@lmsd or something like that, that people, if they have specific resources that we would want to get on the ball, like a specific firm that they have worked with, or like Kara suggested about the surveys that other places have used, or if they know of any grants, like immediate stuff. And then we can proceed as things go along, but at least then people would have a specific place to send that information.
Thanks.
So I see I'm sorry, Melanie, I see the efficacy in trying to bring a group together in terms of the finance questions. A survey of like what type of Shane, I know someone said that in the community that there were surveys. Again, what would the survey would it be?
I believe
about the type of equipment.
Our CSC president referenced that she had a tool that was used by other municipalities and schools when they were taking on certain projects, that it was a question tool, a survey tool that they used, other places have used in advance of putting in more accessible playgrounds to really assess the needs of community members that would be accessing this increased design. And so that was what I was trying to include.
So in a previous life, we put a totally inclusive playground in Haddonfield when I was over there. And I was a part of the entire process, and that was an architectural firm. Once we got the architectural firm, we did bring groups of parents in to say, what do you want? And Jason, I know you threw some costs out, and you're in the beginning of the ballpark with those costs. That's the start of this. But depending on the apparatus, I mean, this could be 500,000. This could be 600,000, depending on the type of apparatus. As you put in, you get what you pay for. You put a couple of things in, and you do the pour, and you're probably at 100, 150, 200. So again, these are very complex issues. And yeah, Shane, I know it was. I'll get with Kimberly. So I'm wondering, as we're brainstorming this, if we can't set up maybe an email, we direct it to Amy, because Amy is our communications person. Call it like the playground account, and begin just what you're saying, Shana, and Jason, what everybody's saying is begin to solicit the community, just a broad range of community. What ideas do you have of funding and grants, and what ideas do you have to again, create some type of structure around finance for this. Maybe partnerships, maybe, again, the board would have to approve things like a certain partnership with a corporation that you might want to deal with. So I think we could, if we could set up, maybe start there, see what we get, and then look to put a physical committee together. Does that make any sense, or no?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? So why don't we, because I want to make sure we're already over time, and I know that I want to make sure that we get to everyone that has hands up, and we have a couple other items. We can also talk about this offline before Monday, and then we can kind of give the community a little bit more of an update as to where we're going to go as next steps. Does that work?
Yes, Jason, that works. And I wanted to add to Dr. Mussoline's comments in reference to you have to have an architect. I mean, your playgrounds are, designed by professional architects. And one that comes to mind is Studio Ludo, which is in Philadelphia, that did a wonderful job with the Smith Playground. There are other, architectural playground providers as well. And that would be the second thing that we would need to see what it would cost to have a professional come in and look at all the playgrounds.
Well, yes, you could have them look at the playgrounds, but I'm just talking about the design. There are all sorts of soft costs involved here.
Yeah, I'm
that's
aware.
Why, again, right? Yeah, sure. So that's why I was looking at when Jason first, said about financing. That becomes the issue, because again, the extent of this is that's the whole ballpark, the extent of what you want to do. And obviously, if you put one with extensive equipment somewhere, how do you do this with 6 elementary schools or 15 playgrounds? And scaling this is certainly another issue. But that's what the board has to grapple with. I think if we could try to set up that email, get some people, get some thoughts, and then we can go from there with a committee, Jason, because we all want to do this. It's not a matter that anybody doesn't want to do this. We want to do this, but you have to do it right, and there's a cost to it.
Perfect.
So may I suggest we do the next people, let them make their statement or question, and then answer them after all three are done, so that we can get them all in. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah, let's do that, because we are
Okay.
at that hour and a half mark now. And
Okay. Next we have, I think it's Daniel Mercer.
Oh, hi, Dan Mercer, Wynwood. Yeah, I used to live in Philadelphia, and these accessible playgrounds are fairly common, and the surfaces were often damaged over periods of time, and it appeared that there's issues with maintaining the smooth surface. So I think it'd be important to learn from experiences of others in maintaining these surfaces, and that perhaps the cork might be better, because particularly under the swings, these things tend to get really messed up. And there's actually a really nice playground in Broomall on Lawrence Road called in Veterans Memorial Park. But it actually their zip line was out of service for an extended period of time because the soft surface was damaged after several weeks of use. And also, I was kind of surprised by the low cost. I'm not, I think it'll be a lot more expensive than that, but it's great to hear someone mention Studio Ludo. It'd be great to have a great designer on hand to make sure that these are nicely designed. Thanks.
thank you, Mr. Mercer.
Next we have Miss Waltzer. You're on mute, Miss Waltzer.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Danielle Waltzer. I am a mother of a first grader at Gladwin, and also of 2 other children not in the district yet. We just recently, by we, my husband and I worked on the Gladwin Park that is approved for renovation in the 2 months. I think they're going to break ground. That took me about 2.5 years to accomplish on behalf of my daughter who has mobility impairment. That process was pretty simple. I basically handed them a design and they looked at the company that provided it. They ultimately agreed it needed to be done. They used ARPA funds for it. And it wasn't as much at the end as I wanted to get done, but it didn't take a long time as far as, the concept to the creation. I think that, working with the playground design company, they have those people baked into them a lot of the times, architects, designers, etc. I would love to share my expertise. I'm also born and raised in the district. I went to Baldwin. My son's playground at Gladwin is not great. I would love to see it changed. However, I also think that we're underutilizing the parent involvement as far as potential fundraising opportunities. I think that parents would be really happy to organize something knowing that it directly impacts their kids, especially when it comes to outdoor time, outdoor play. You can never get enough of that as a kid. So I think that parents at this day and age, at my general age range, agree, and it would be a missed opportunity not to try to fundraise. And, I think that may or may not set apart the order of, who potentially, obviously, gets installed first. Or, I know you guys have that. Sana talked about the rubric or something about which playgrounds have the most need, and that's going to be submitted to us to review or something. I wasn't on that meeting or wasn't privy to that information before just now. But I think that it would be a missed opportunity not to try to fundraise. I think that what I did wasn't honestly that hard. You have a space, you have certain parameters you can work within, like the topography, everything involved. There's a certain amount of room around each piece of playground equipment, so on and so forth, and you can only fit so much. Like, it actually can come together quite quickly. So I'm on board. I would like to help, given that I've got a kid that is actively using the playgrounds right now and they need a facelift. They all do in the whole Lower Merion area. So I'm working on it and I'd love to help. Okay.
Well, thank you very much. We're glad to hear we have support from you and please, when that watch for that email to come out. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Herman, and this is our final one.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. 2 points of clarification. One, the question is this committee or group, the feedback group that we're talking about creating for playgrounds. I just want to clarify, it's for all parent feedback on playgrounds, not just accessibility or inclusive playgrounds, correct? It's because we do have parents who have other concerns and want to provide feedback on other playground topics.
Yeah, Ms. Herman, that just adds another goal to it. But sure, the answer is yes. We could do that. Yeah. Just that's exactly what I was after. What is the aim? What are the goals? And you just delineated one more, which is fine.
Right. Okay. So like the whole community would be involved if they wanted to participate, not just stakeholders with students who have accessibility concerns. Okay. And secondly, I just wanted to ask a question about the selection process for deciding which playgrounds are renovated first, and that timeline, which I understand. I give you all credit. It's a complex jigsaw puzzle to put together with budgeting and weather and a million other factors and the current state of the existing playground structures, etc., all to factor in. But is anyone factoring in an inventory of our students who do have motility issues and accessibility needs in order to determine that those playgrounds are higher up, sooner on the calendar to be renovated based on the student needs in each building?
My understanding is that was a factor being considered, but I would, is Ms. Fraser, are you still on the call to answer to that?
Yes, again, like our department has been part of these conversations, and yes, that is part of the consideration and recommendations.
And that includes incoming students also, not just this current school year, being that it's transition time for working with the MCIU or whomever in terms of inventory, so to speak, of our student population coming in for kindergarten, since a lot of this is so kindergarten based.
Yeah, to the degree that we're aware of incoming students, yes.
Okay, so part of it has to do with, I hate to use the word inventory for our students, but looking at our number of kids per building and identifying which buildings have kids who use wheelchairs and crutches and rollators, walkers, whatever. And that does place influence on the schedule about which gets consideration for going under construction first. That need-based thing.
It's one of the factors of consideration.
Right. And
there's a lot of different things.
I'm not sure that's the question I'm asking of you. I think I'm more asking it.
Thank you.
Mr. Blue. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, Ms. LaPera, you just said that was the last question. I know you wanted to do it as
Yes. So, yes, you can, if you have an answer for Ms. Herman, yes, she's the last person.
I just didn't want to go out of order. Good afternoon, Ms. Herman. Good to see you. So everything that's being done in our assessments, Kimberly Fraser specifically mentioned Stephanie Doyle as the liaison with Mr. Copeland in our office. This is something that is taken into consideration. Again, it is a complex Rubik's Cube, if you will, when you consider the number of playgrounds and the number of schools, but it is one of the factors, and it's also one of the things that has to be taken into consideration on an individual basis with student needs and making the proper accommodations.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
And Ms. Herman, I believe the word you might be looking for is roster.
Thank you. It's very team oriented of you.
Yeah. Well, thank you all. This has been a very informative discussion. Now we still have 2 more items to get through. I'm sure, Mr. Lill, with timing in that, do you want to? I'm not sure how should we consider still go through these 2 agenda or hold them for next month.
I can do them quickly, and Ms. Schaffmeister, I promise not to say anything about snow or weather or anything like that, because I'm probably fixated on that topic. Specific to the grass field between Kinwood Elementary and Bala Kinwood, this was also discussed at the December Facilities and Purchasing Committee and some of the constraints that are involved there. Again, not to focus everything specifically on costs, but to reiterate what was discussed back in December. Regrading that field, improving the drainage, and reestablishing the grass, specifically sod. We're talking about a grass field inside that track. We had school district developed a conceptual project cost of between $300,000 and $400,000. And then we're aware of the current gravel track, non-standard size, again, based on physical constraints. Our conceptual costs were somewhere between $450,000 and $550,000. So if you do the totals, that's a $750,000 to $950,000. That does, I know, great sticker shock.
Jim, the second number is to put a new gravel track in, or is to put what kind of surface in there? For
synthetic. I'm sorry, all weather. I ran through that too quickly. My apologies.
Thank
that
you.
would be an all weather synthetic surface. So yes, a $750,000, $950,000 $1 million project does have some sticker shock to it. Obviously, financial implications. What we've been able to determine, and this is a really good, I think, benchmark. Upper Darby School District recently did a number of their fields, and anybody that hits Google Earth and you go to Beverly Hills Middle School, they have 2 fields at that facility. Pay no attention to the one field closest to Garrett Road. That's a artificial turf football field. That's not the one I'm referring to. If you look at the Google Earth on Beverly Hills Middle School, behind that middle school is a track and a field that looks very similar to what we have at BC and Kinwood. I'm not saying it's exact dimensions, but you can definitely see an odd shaped track with a an odd-shaped field in the middle of that. We've been able to communicate with our counterparts there. That recently went through a recent upgrade 2022. Again, I use that for similarity because they put grass on the field inside the inner oval of the track, and they converted that to the synthetic surface that Ms. Kalish referenced. That was a $1.4 million project for the Upper Darby School District. And going back and breaking it down into some of the components, 500,000 of that was the field, and we had a 300 to 400,000 concept. So we're probably light on that number. The track itself, again, making it that synthetic surface, that cost them about $560,000. Our conceptual cost was around 450, 550. So I feel better about that number. Some of the other items that they did that brought it to that 1.4 million total, they actually put a sand grid drainage system. Probably see these on professional sports fields like Citizens Bank Park or possibly Lincoln Financial Field. That cost them $270,000. And they also installed pop-up irrigation for the benefit of the sod, the benefit of that grass at $100,000. So regrettably, that 750 to 950,000, it was a significant amount of money. I think we're finding out that is going to be that we're going to be definitely in that order of magnitude. So this is talking about, if we're doing it the same way, $1 million project easily.
So how do we proceed then making the determination of prioritization? Is this something that we put forth in front of the budget committee and we have a discussion about it in facilities on whether to prioritize it, whether we should put it on the shorter long-term capital projects plan? Like, it feels like a lot of the long-term planning stuff has sort of come down from the administration. And so there's a clear path forward on how that gets scheduled and because they're more necessary things, roofs and things. Like, you can't have a school without a roof. But this is, how do we organize the want to have and prioritizing the want to haves?
Sorry, Jim, Mr. Little, did you want
to? Good, Mr.
I was just going to say that, the problem is that it services two schools, and the other piece of this is that I don't know if I would necessarily say as a want. I think it's a little bit more than that, just because from feedback that we've received, there are the health of certain students breathing in the track. The nurses say that they can't go outside or utilize it. Like, there are complications with the current track that is.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree that this is a project that I really want to see done and really want to see done soon. But I also, okay, so maybe not a want to have, but not an essential for operation of school.
So from talking with Mr. Orlando, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem like something like this for $1 million will ever come out of our regular, budget. It seems like we're going to probably have to come up with, or maybe we'll be able to save for it over time. It would be nice if we could put this on the capital improvement plan, on our plan, and then maybe in the meantime, we can reach out similarly to playgrounds, those communities that are involved in this, and see if there's other fundraising opportunities or grant opportunities that might be able to help facilitate moving this forward from a financial standpoint. Since it seems like we've already done the legwork, we have potentially a design to a certain degree. Obviously, we'd have to fine tune it. The only impediment holding us back on this is the cost, right, Mr. Lowe?
There's, again, any project to be approved. We will do any project that gets approved, but it has to be going through the right process, protocols, one of those being cost.
Right.
And long range, I'm sorry, guys.
I think we're going to say the same thing, that it feels a little squicky to try and do private fundraising for every capital project that we want to do.
Yeah. Long range planning becomes critical. Obviously, you have to have the money. Vic, I know he's got a long range vision. Jim would have that. I would say let's just circle back through facilities and finance and get a long-term plan. I know there's some things with the budget dropping off. I know there's some ways that we can possibly do these, and including possibly borrowing. I mean, I don't know. That's again in the future, long range.
So can we perhaps agree to put it on the agenda for the facilities meeting around of the finance committee, when the finance committee is discussing facilities in April?
Yes, Shana. Yes, that's what I would recommend. Let your budget team get a look at this. Let your facilities team set out a plan, and then you guys say yay or nay. I mean, you're going to see exactly where the money's coming from and when it will be there. So that's your best bet, Shane.
Yeah, I was only asking it the way I did because I didn't want to. I know that we go for our full budget approval in May, and I really didn't want to be in a position where we were asking our team to completely overhaul and or find $1 million in a month. Because I know that would be like, as we're going to the approval, I'm just mindful of everybody's schedule, and I don't want to kill anybody.
That might be hard also, Shada. So this budget's going to be tight. So that would be my recommendation. Let's let the finance and facilities team present a long range plan. You guys take a look at it. We go from there.
So in that meeting, then the expectation would be is that we have fitted into as to when we would be able to pay for it.
That's what I would recommend, Jason. I would think that our team could do that. I mean, wherever it is, wherever it falls. It's not obviously not going to occur tomorrow, but at some point we can have a plan at least.
Okay, and if Mr. Orlando, if it ends up that prior to that meeting, from looking at the budget, if it's not going to work for next year, but as part of our capital plan, you have an idea of when realistically this could be accomplished, whether it be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, that would be helpful to get prior to that meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Was there any community, I don't know, we're running way behind schedule, but I just wondered, were there any raised hands for this?
Not on this topic.
My thing was bouncing around. Adrian Seltzer has raised her hand.
Okay.
Yeah. I was wondering, I know the sale for Oakwell was completed. How much did the school district get from that, and what is happening with that money?
It has not been completed as of yet. It's was just recently approved by the judge.
Okay. So what will be happening with that money?
There's no indicate, Mr. Orlando, can you indicate as to when potentially we would there's even an option of potentially, not an option, but when we would potentially see the funds of that?
I assume they would go back into the capital budget.
Right now, Mr. Herman, there's a bunch of other steps that have to be completed before we can complete the actual sale. Probably sometime in another year from now, potentially, if everything goes well. And then, yes, we would have to have a discussion with the board and use those funds for capital items.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are we okay to move on to the last item?
There's no other questions.
Yeah. Okay. So the Bella Quinwood Middle School roof replacement. Mr. Lill, you're up again.
Yeah. Going back to the December Facilities and Purchasing Committee and also the board agenda, on the purchasing report was the phase 1 of the Bella Quinwood Middle School major roof replacement. Now, this is broken into 2 phases because it's going to extend over 2 summers. So the work that is scheduled for summer of 2025 was approved, and that contract's been executed. $4.4 million. That covers roughly half of the roof area, roughly. The discussion that we had back in December still holds true. From a constructability standpoint, from the amount of work that roofing companies can get done and the limited amount of time that we have over the summer months when those buildings are empty, necessitated breaking that into 2 phases. So phase 1 has been fully approved. Moving forward, phase 2 would be brought up at a later date in advance of summer 2026 work. Mr. Herman, you had asked for this to be added as an item for discussion, so I will give the floor to you.
No, I just wanted to make sure that the community was aware that half of it was being done at 25, the other half is slated for 26, and that we have the money or the budget earmarked for that for 26 as well. I just wanted to make sure that, and that's correct, right, Mr. Orlando?
Right now, we have funds available for phase 1, phase 2. Mr. Herman, we still have to work out the finances, whether it's coming through debt service or monies that the district has. It hasn't been determined yet.
Okay. And when is that discussion going to happen? And is that part of this committee, or would that be the budget of the finance committee?
Probably a combination of
slated the second half. The all expectation is that it will be completed, or that it will be started and completed in the summer. Perfect. All right, great. So we don't have to keep this on the agenda going forward unless and until Mr. Orlando and Mr. Little feel that it's necessary to bring back just for the approval for the second phase of that.
Are we?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Melanie. Just I may have to leave, but I just want to make sure we do discuss the meeting change.
Yes, that's the next
meeting.
item. Yeah, the next meeting, the meeting change. So just to report out to everybody, our next meeting will be changing times till 9:30. It will still be online, but there is a conflict for timing with some other meetings for our superintendents. And so we will be moving that to 9:30, and hopefully that later time will allow parents from elementary school also to be on the calls.
And we're going to keep it Zoom as well. We will also make sure that we let people know on Monday during the board meeting of this change. So it'll be the same Thursday, just instead of 12 o'clock start, it will start at 9:30.
Yeah, and that will be on February 13th is our next meeting. So if given the timing,
I just asked wait, I'm sorry, Melanie, to interrupt. It's Denise, but I just want to clarify, is it only the February one, or I thought it was the meetings moving forward?
Moving forward. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes. Okay. So I believe with the timing of all that we're well over timing at 2-hour mark, that this meeting is going to be adjourned. If anybody had any questions further, that they can submit them through community comments or send an email to the board. I appreciate everyone attending, and thank you all. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.
Thank you for your time.